Hello. Welcome to this webinar. Let me share my screen. You should be seeing the presentation. So hi guys, again, welcome to the webinar, The Supple Art of Project Discovery Phase. Let me know if you can hear me. Let's try if you can use the chat here in Zoom. Let's see if you can write something there and I can see that. Maybe let us know what you think about the music that was playing right before that. I see something. Okay, the chat is disabled, so we see one message in the Q&A section here. So if we can try to enable the chat, that would be great. But at least I know that you can hear me because I see something going on in the Q&A session. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so the chat is also enabled. So let's try the chat. Let's throw up some communication there. Okay. Still see just Marta's message there. So let's maybe check if that thing works. We can use the Q&A, but it will not be that. Yeah. I still see your messages, guys, that the chat is still disabled. So let's try to fix that along the way. Maybe something went wrong while we were setting up this webinar, but that's fine. We can use the Q&A section as well. So that's fine. Okay, let's start. So we'll be starting slowly and give maybe a chance to fix the chat and see if more people will join our webinar today. So let's start with me introducing myself. So my name is Kirillo, and I am a director of business analysis office at a company called Softserve. And just a few items about myself. I started at Softserve in 2015, so like almost 8 years ago, as a business analyst, and worked on like multiple different most of all complex projects in healthcare, real estate, investment, some government platforms, etc. I am also TOGAF certified, so that is the certification in the enterprise architecture area, let's put it this way, from the open group. I know that speakers usually talk about their certification, so I decided to put mine also as well here. And currently, my main responsibility is leading business analysis office management team and competence management. That means making sure that the business analysts in our company have everything that they need for their performance to become better, and making sure that we have all the knowledge, all the tools, the trainings, and everything necessary for our business analysts. Also, one of my missions is making Softserve a best place for business analysts, and this is something that we really try to achieve, and I think we're doing a very good job in that direction. And I'm going to talk about the company and our business analysis office just a little bit today, so we can just get this thing going a little bit. One of the other tasks is boosting business analysis performance. So we're doing a lot in that direction, making sure that our BAs are the best and bringing the best value to our clients, and creating the best business analysis services there can be at this point. And another point is spreading the business analysis knowledge. And this is something that we're doing right now, and we'll do more. And I will talk about our learning solutions as well, so you'll know a little bit more about our courses and our education programs that we have. So just a few words about Softserve, for those of you who may not be familiar with this company, that this is a pretty big, one of the largest Ukrainian consultancy services and software development company. Basically, we work as a service company and providing services in fields of big data, Internet of Things, cloud computing, DevOps, e-commerce, computer security, experience design, healthcare, and many, many more. Our business analysis office was established in 2012. So that means like what, 11 years ago? Wow, time flies. And currently we have around 460 business analysts spread across 12 countries. Most of them are in Ukraine. We have also offices in Bulgaria, in Poland, in Romania, and our BAs are represented also in United States, in Canada, in Mexico, in Colombia, in Chile, and in other countries all around the globe, almost. So for now, I see we still don't have, maybe chat is disabled and there will be no chance to fix it, but I encourage you to use this Q&A section to ask your questions. So let me just see if I can check if I can like dismiss the messages that are already there. Yeah, just give me 1 second. Okay. That's good. So if you have any questions, and I hope you will have some questions, just put that in the Q&A box. So we will use that as our tool of communications. It's a shame that we cannot use the chat, but yeah, okay, we can use the Q&A box. So I will also talk a little bit about our learning solutions that we have at Softserve before we start, just to give a chance to everyone to join. So we have several courses in Softserve targeted for business analysis. So one of our courses is Business Analysis Foundation. And this course was developed like, I don't know, like maybe 5-6 years ago. And it's developed for those who want to become a business analyst, yeah, for people who want to start their career or maybe switch into that direction. So this is like the foundation, as it's called, foundation knowledge about business analysis, mostly delivered by our Softserve business analysts who have all the practical experience and like to share that experience with our students. So we are starting a new group in September. So please stay tuned. I mean, we will share a link, and there will be a QR code on the next slide that you can scan and get to the page where we have more information about the courses. But we also informed that we closely collaborate with IABA, which is International Institute of Business Analysis. And you will also get 32 PDUs, professional development units, as a result of learning at this course. Okay, I can see the link in the chat. So you can, if you can see that as well, you can try to use that link. So the next course that we have is for business analysis practitioners, and it's called Arts and Crafts of Business Analysis. So this course was specifically developed for experienced business analysts who'd like to learn some new techniques, new approaches to the way they deliver business analysis services on the projects. And we have like two types of this course. We have one which is targeting we call it innovation focus, and it targets more like business analysis who works with innovations like startups, something new, development of new products using like the cutting edge technologies. And the other course is called enterprise focused, and it is targeted to the business analyst who works with large enterprises. So as you may know, the approaches to work for these directions are quite different. So that's why we developed this two set of focuses in this Arts and Crafts of Business Analysis. That's a very good course, and it gets you like 48 professional development units, and the group starts in August, as far as I remember. And we already had this group for innovation focus, so the next one will be for the enterprise focus. If you're interested, just you can request, like just go by that link and like request someone to contact you about that course. So all of the courses are in English, except for this first one. We have it in Ukrainian and in English, so several groups. Next course that we have is a certification bootcamp. So that is targeted specifically to business analysts who want to prepare for ECBA, CCBA, CBAP certification exam. So this is, as I said, we are like closely partnering with IABA, and this course, as all our other courses, are accredited by IABA. So we have all our trainers here are certified business analysts. They have CCBA or CBAP certification, and they will help you to prepare and to, you know, find your way around Babok and all the interesting parts of this mysterious book, and get yourself prepared to the certification. And the last one is a pretty new course in our portfolio. It's called 10 key techniques for product ownership analyst. It's designed for those business analysts who want to accelerate their skills in the product ownership analysis, basically having a role of a product owner on their projects, or wanting to be there in that role. And it is also like wrapped around the CPOA certification a little bit. It's not something that prepares you for certification, but it's a set of workshops that help you to understand this role better and equip you with all needed techniques. So the next group will start in November, but I think right now we're in the summer, and it's time to plan your education in autumn. So just make sure that you follow this link. We have a QR code. If you like have your mobile phone with you, you can scan this QR code or use the link that we have in the chat. Yes, finally, the chat is working perfect. So if I go back to that slide, we had the very nice map in here. So I wanted to ask you to let me know where you're connecting from, like what type, what city, what country, what part of the world are you joining us from? Do we have people all around the globe today? So let me know. Yes, I can see your messages finally. So we have people from Lviv, Canada. Wow. Bulgaria, Sofia, Odessa, Lviv, Canada, Toronto. Okay, many people from Ukraine, Dnipro. Wow, I'm also connecting from Dnipro. Lutsk, Lviv, Krakow, Poland, Wrocław. Very good. Very good. Okay, we have a message that Hannah cannot wait for certification bootcamp. Wow, that's very great. I also cannot wait for another group to start. Hope our trainers are as excited as I am. So we have people joining from Sofia, Burgas, Kiev, Dnipro, perfect. Białystok, Poland, Chicago. Wow, Galina from Chicago, Porto, Romania. Wow. Really all around the globe. That's fantastic. All right, so let's use chat for communication. Please feel free to like communicate in there, share your comments, impressions, whatever. And we can use the Q&A box for the questions. I see we have now a question there. I will get to the questions part a bit later, so I will be like looking into that Q&A box from time to time, but let me just start to talk about discovery, and then we can move on with the questions. We have Irina from New York. Oh my God. And also people from Kiev. That's fantastic. Thank you. So let's start. Yeah, I hope everyone had a chance to scan the QR code. I will have it on the last slide of the presentation as well. So what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about what is a project discovery. I'm gonna like align on that definition to proceed. We're gonna talk about some key discovery artifacts for business analysts, at least to be created. We're gonna talk about how to be prepared, how to prepare yourself to a project discovery, like what can you do to, you know, be prepared, let's put it this way. Also some tips and techniques to add to your discovery workshop. So I will not be focusing on some like straightforward things that like everyone is doing, but maybe some additional stuff that I don't expect that most of you are doing on the discoveries. I will like shed some light on that techniques, which are really, really useful. And we will review the actual case that I had on one of my projects, and I will explain to you how I used one of the techniques on my project. So we have Sergey from Kharkiv. That's perfect. Let's start. So let's start from what is a discovery. And like usually we have like two schools of thought here, like not even two schools of thought, but kind of two viewpoints to what a discovery is, or what you can call a discovery. And one viewpoint, let's say one way of thinking about it, is the so-called, or like something that I would call a product discovery. So that is a process that helps product teams refine their ideas by deeply understanding real user problems and then landing on the best way to solve them. So basically, this is something typical for IT product companies that develop their own products, and they're constantly doing discovery. Yeah, they're constantly looking into their user needs. They're trying to find ways how to serve their users in a better way, or how to get more new users. Yeah, so this is like the constant process on their end, and usually this is something along the lines of or along the responsibilities of the product manager, or whatever role there is in the product company, because there are like a lot of those guys there. So this is not the discovery that I will talk about today. Yeah, this is a different type of discovery. What I will talk about is like rather discovery phase or discovery stage, which is like one of the first and like most important stages of a development project, aimed to gather information about the project and find the best solution to serve the client. So this kind of discovery is more typical for service company, or for like outsource model, if you wish. And this is what usually happens, or should happen at least, when you have a client and you are like a vendor or an IT company that needs to fulfill some sort of a project for a client. So this is the type of discovery that I will be talking about today. And I hope that you're excited to listen about that type of discovery. So let's check out the schema here. And I will use this drawing tools. So what is like the usual, let's say, like high level project life cycle that we have? So as a software company, or as a service software company, usually we are targeting our clients, right? So we start with identifying a certain prospect, which is a potential client, a company searching for some sort of software development. And the first stage usually is called the pre-sale. Well, when we try to understand like whether this company will have some interesting projects for us, or whether we can suggest some interesting services for this company. So we're trying to understand and evaluate each other, basically. So the potential client makes his decision whether he wants to continue to work with us based on a certain set of documents, and we will not go into that detail. We will not like spend time on discussing the pre-sale activities, but let's just say that there are some activities there that we just want to understand whether we want to continue with that client and whether we want to proceed with that project. And the next stage would be a discovery stage. This is the stage that we will be focusing today. So this is a stage when we really want to understand what this project will be about, what kind of system we need to develop, what kind of business problems we need to tackle with our system or with our solution. But usually for IT company, the solution is IT product, right? It's pretty simple in that terminology. So the discovery stage is when we try to understand what will be the best solution for this problem, try to understand like what is the size of this project, what like risks there can be, like what type of solution there can be, what type of team we will need, what type of like development project we will have. So, and as a continuation of a discovery stage, we may end up with having some sort of a concept or POC, or some sort of a prototype that we can present to the client, or some sort of a like document or artifact with like solution description. That would be usually like the result of the discovery, but we will talk about that in more detail. And then if everything goes well, we can move on to the development stage. So at this point, no actual development is supposed to happen. This is like the stage where we supposed to evaluate like what this project is about, and decide like what is like the best way to approach the business need. But this is not the only time where discovery can be applied. So we can see, for example, if this project takes a lot of iterations, and there are like many examples like this, that we have been working with a certain client for, let's say, a year, and then this client brings some absolutely new functionality or new module or a new part of the platform that he wants to develop. Even though it's not a new client, it's not a prospect at this point, but we still can have a discovery stage somewhere here devoted to identifying like the business needs of that particular part of the solution or particular part of that problem, or particular part of the platform. So we can have a discovery stage not only in the beginning of the project. However, it's like the most classical case, I would say. But also we can have it like at different stages. Whenever clients bring something new to us, has some new vision, new maybe product he wants to develop, or develop his product in a different way. So we can have it there. And also, as the result of discovery, all of this can not happen. Yeah, we can understand that, look, this is something that we cannot solve with that type of solution, or maybe client will realize that like he doesn't have the budget, or he just his organization is just not ready for that type of change. So that can also be the outcome of the discovery stage. So we may not have a development project. Yeah, we will not have something to develop at the end of the discovery. But what we will have an understanding of the client problem, and the client will also like have that understanding, and we will give a good, let's say, consulting service at this point. So we will help the client to understand his situation and maybe find a better solution, or just understand that at this point at this point of time, he's not ready for a certain like development stage. Or maybe it is better not to develop something from scratch, but rather buy something off the shelf, or use like already existing product to solve his current problems. In any case, the discovery stage is aimed to kind of minimize the uncertainty, because at this point, then there are really a lot of uncertainty. We only had several meetings with the client. We have a high level understanding of the project, and it's really hard to estimate that project. It's really hard to tell if we can solve client problems with our development. And the discovery stage is aimed to give us answers on most of these questions and eliminate the uncertainty and help us to mitigate some risks. So let me check the Q&A box at this point, and know we have a question from Pablo there. Is there any difference in discovery for a 10-year monolithic product and for a startup? I mean, yes and no. I would say the approach that you would take pretty much the same. Yeah. So in both cases, you're discovering mostly the needs of your client. Yeah. What business need you need to solve? Whether will you be able to solve it with additions to a 10-year monolithic product, or changing that product, or using the functionality of that product somehow, or you doing that with something from scratch. Basically, you're targeting the same areas, and we will like go deeper into this presentation, and I will like show you what type of areas we need to target with our discovery initiatives. And probably you will see that it pretty much the same, it dependent if it's a startup, if it's something from scratch, if it's like a greenfield project, or it's something like with a history and with the legacy. Now with the development, I would say having a 10-year monolithic product is much worse than doing something from scratch. But from a discovery point of view, it's more or less the same. I mean, if you need to go into the estimate stage after discovery, I would say, yes, you will have to take into account like a lot of dependencies that you may need to uncover, and most probably that would be like the job of the technical people on your team, maybe an architect or some sort of subject matter expert in implementation. But from like a business analyst point of view, the approaches you would take are pretty much the same, but yeah, some constraints, limitations, and dependencies that probably would be much more in the 10-tier monolithic product as you specified. So I think I've answered that one. So keep that questions coming. I will look into the Q&A box like from time to time, and I think we will have some time at the end of the session. But I'd rather have to like chance to answer those questions as we proceed with the presentation. So let's talk about the benefits of having a discovery phase, because not every time and not in every project we have a luxury of having that phase. In some cases, we go straight into development after pre-sale, and we like sign a contract and start development. And most of the stories I heard about such projects are like stories of complete madness, and really like people are suffering there because there are a lot of things that were not known at the time that we were doing the estimates and we were like making the decision to take that project. So the discovery phase, and usually the discovery phase has a lot of beneficiaries. So let's look at the several sides of those. So first of all, it's us, it's the service company. So what benefits do we take from the discovery phase? First of all, we get more knowledge about like client context, about his business, about his like business need, let's put it like that. So usually we're talking about solving some problem or creating some opportunity on the client's end. The discovery phase will help us to assess and mitigate risks, definitely. It will also help us to kind of sell our services better and display our professionalism, because usually when you have a discovery phase, you don't have a contract signed already. Yeah, it's like a small mini project, let's put it like that. This is the discovery project. So you can show to your client how professional you are, what kind of good professionals you have on the team, display like the way you approach and tackle clients like problems, and display how you work as a team. And that can also like show a better side of you and persuade client to sign a contract with you. And it can develop into a like long-time partnership, because client can see that you are really devoted to solving his problem and helping him to find the best solution. Yeah, you're not only there to do what he tells you to do, but rather you are there to solve his problem, yeah, or to help him. And that's what we can do. That's our benefits. So for the client, there's also a lot of benefits in the discovery phase. First of all, again, it's the risk mitigation. And as a result of the discovery phase, like, no, you will never get accurate estimates, but you will definitely get better estimates of like project costs and project timelines, etc. So we have a comment. I confirmed the stories from Dobromir. Yeah, I heard a lot of such stories, and I think you're not the only one who can confirm that in the chat. And I cannot say, I mean, I would lie if I'd say I wasn't part of such stories, but yeah, really, I heard most of the stories. So for the other benefit for the client is to be able to validate if the proposed solution fits business needs. And this is like really great benefit, because usually you have a client who has a solution and he's coming to an IT company saying like, look, I need a system to be developed in a certain manner, or I need a certain system to be developed. But in many cases, this is not like the best way to solve his problem, yeah, and to give him all the benefits that he can get. And usually us as IT professionals know in an understanding like the context of the client and his business background and his business need will help him to pick a better solution. And sometimes it's like would be even much cheaper than what he really like wanted in the first place. So that's definitely would be a great benefit for the client. And also just the thing that I mentioned earlier, to validate if the proposed solution even fits the business needs. Because I had some stories when the client wanted to develop a certain system, but after a discovery stage, he just realized that he doesn't need it. It will not solve the problem at all. So he and usually like at this point you would say, okay, but then you like lose the project. And that may be true. You may lose the project at the very like this point, but definitely serving like a good job to the client, or giving him a good service as a good consultant, and saving his money basically will definitely bring this client back, and will definitely even spread a good word about you, and maybe even bring more clients to your doors. And also, the client can assess a service company performance. So this is like something that I mentioned here. So we can demonstrate our performance or our professionalism, and the client has a chance to have like a trial version of us as a team, and be able to make a final decision whether he wants to proceed with us or not. So it's like a lot of benefits for a client as well. And for the team, for the development team, or for the team which participates in discovery, it also gives more like project context. They get a better vision on the product that needs to be developed, and it gives them a chance to estimate their efforts in a better way. That includes like the architecture work, and that includes the development and team assembly, and a lot of different scenarios here. And I will like later on, when we get to the real case example, you will see like what benefits the discovery phase brought at that particular case. Right. So let's also like talk about some additional like information about like or good practices on the discovery. So timing is important. As I mentioned, it's better to look at the discovery stage as a mini project, which has its own like time limits. So usually we have like two options here, like exclusions of course allowed, but like usually it's one of the options is on-site plus off-site. So on-site is when you travel to the client and spend like 2 weeks or 1 week like with the client, seeing his business, seeing his context, understanding like where and how the things are done on his end. You have a chance to meet all like the stakeholders on the client's end and communicate with them. So it's a very, very useful approach, I would say, if you have a chance to travel, which unfortunately not like some of us cannot do it at this point. And you have like, again, like offsite time to like continue working on the artifacts or on the information that you have brought from the on-site, and develop like a proposal or an estimate, or like whatever the result of the discovery can be. And we will talk about that. So you see it's like 2 to 4 weeks. And the offsite option, it's when you don't have an ability to travel and you're doing everything like online via collaborating tools like via Zoom or like Teams, and you're using some collaboration boards or something. It usually will take more time. So you should probably like forecast about 6 to 8 weeks, or in some cases less. I would really not recommend to have a longer discovery, because in that case, we have a risk of like not getting anywhere, and client would like spend most of his budget like trying to search for something. I had a story told by one of my colleagues that they once had a discovery phase which lasted almost half a year. And that was really, really long and exhausting phase, I would say. So they haven't hardly developed anything, because like they were continuously discovering and trying to find like the answers to like never-ending questions, and that led to like spending most of the client's budget without like and like delivering any value. And that's really a bad example. So you shouldn't do like that. You should definitely limit the discovery stage in time, and agree that after that we make a decision. Either we start the development, or we just like stop, because otherwise you will just, it will end up with spending client's budget on just like discovering stuff. So we have communication going on in the chat. Okay, we'll like let that be. The timing may also depend on other ongoing projects of the same team stakeholders. Yes, that's absolutely true, Elizabeth. And we will talk about that also, like when we talk about preparation. Definitely, stakeholder availability is a crucial factor in being able to do a good discovery phase. But as I say, we're looking at the ideal scenario. Yeah, so you either have that, or you can have that. All the rest can also be, but most probably it will end up in like worse results, or have a risk of ending up in a worse result. I wouldn't like be a prophet here. Okay, so let's check out the Q&A box. So we have a question from Marta. Discovery versus continuous discovery. Where do we draw the line between what is in the minimum good enough knowledge of kickoff dev and what can be easily discovered and planned just in time? Are customers fond of the whole continuous discovery approach? Well, it depends. Like I will start to answer the second questions about our customers fond of the whole continuous discovery approach. They usually are, and until they realize that like their budget is gone. So that's like, and I had like other stories, like people are like doing continuous discovery and working on the projects that were never meant to be released. Yeah, and you have like projects or products developing like for several years, but they haven't seen production. And these are all like bad stories. And usually like you don't achieve anything with that product. Like if you don't release it, it will never bring any value, right? It will not bring value even if you release it in some cases. But if you don't release it, if no one's using it, it will definitely not bring value. So this continuous discovery is something which is not recommended in our world, I would say. If it's a product which is on production and continuously develops and gains new features, then it's a different story. And about like where we draw the line, so I think it's pretty easy to draw the line here based on our like contract obligations. So there are different ways of doing that from like the contract perspective, but I think the best way is to have a short-term contract on these timelines, or like somewhere around those timelines, to have to agreed on a certain discovery deliverable. And we will talk about the deliverables also. And yeah, there you draw the line. So that is something that you can use like for that. Okay, two more questions. Is that timing applied to discoveries for new client, new opportunity, or just new features, much smaller scope? Good point, Elizabeth. When we talk about timing here, it's usually for the case where we have like the new client, a new opportunity, something like that. I see people are raising the hand. I'm not sure if we have that ability to unmute you and give you a chance to ask your question. So please just use the Q&A section or the chat to ask your question, and I will definitely answer that. Yeah, so that was the Elizabeth question. So we're talking about like new project. If it's a new feature, it really depends. Yeah, it's like something that you cannot like put in a certain timeline, but I would say it shouldn't take as much time. But again, it depends. If it's a huge feature, if it's like a huge module or something. I had an experience like when we started to introduce some financial models to the platform which didn't have any financial models before. That was a huge scope, and that actually took us more time than what we have here on this screen. Okay, so I answered that one. Then we'll do discovery where the budget is gone. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. That was our timelines. Now let's talk about who takes part in the discovery. Like who are these brave people who should participate? Like, at least for my point of view, the absolute must-have duo on the discovery stage is business analyst and the architect. So this is like the minimum team that you need, because like a business analyst should cover everything from the business standpoint and like the user perspective, And the architect should cover like everything concerning the technologies, the stack of technologies, the architecture, the infrastructure, what have you there. So that's like the minimum. Yeah. So that's like something that is must have. But depending on the type of the product, or depending on the case, you can add to this team like different other like stakeholders. Designer, for example, is usually a part of a team when we are developing a product where design is really like one of the most like business attractions, yeah, or like business competitive advantages, I would say. Then when the client wants to create something really innovative with a great design, or he may also call the whole project is to just redesign existing platform, which is a big pitfall, by the way. So this is also something that if you hear that, yeah, this project is just about the redesign of existing platform, so we don't really need a business analyst there, we will not change any functionality, we just need to redesign it. Like this is a red flag, definitely, because if you like take this as a true information, you will make a big mistake, because it's never about just redesign. It's never about just visual. So every time clients thinking, yeah, we also need to change this functionality here, and we also need to add something there, but it can all be part of the redesign initiative. So you definitely need a business analyst even for the projects like this. Then depending on type of technologies, you may want to have some implementation subject matter experts like data scientists, DevOps, maybe, like depends on the maybe AI experts, which is a great new trend or ongoing trend at the moment. In some cases, you may add a product manager to a team or a project manager. We also have this role, and I know that not many companies have the luxury of having engagement manager. So that is the person who makes things happen, basically engages everyone into communication, make sure that everyone is like on track with their schedules, make sure that everyone like the communication is going in the right way, that we sign the proper paperwork, that we deliver the proper deliverables, etc. So if you have this guy on the team, he's very helpful, he or she. And some cases you have like a client partners that we call them, or maybe some representatives that they kind of brought the client to us. This may be part of a like sales team, or just client partnership, or like account managers. They have different names, but this is usually, again, a person that makes the communication better, like shakes hands with everyone, makes jokes. And sometimes you need a person like this also, especially when you're working with a like a huge client with a big team, and you have to talk to C-level people. It's good to have such guy on your team that will help to ease off the communication. So we have some communication going in the chat. I don't think those are questions to me. Yeah, account executive may be also a good, so it's just someone. It's not a partner, it's someone who will talk to the client, let's put it like that. Maxim, yeah, thank you for adding that. So it's a like a client relationship man or woman. Okay, so this is like the team that can be there, but as I said, must have people are these two. But we're going to talk about just one person, yeah, about the business analyst today. And you may think like, what are the expectations from a BA at the discovery stage? Yeah, so usually it's something along the following. Yeah, we need to find answers or find certain pieces of information to be sure that we understand our the client's business objectives. Like, what are his objectives? What is he trying to reach with like implementing of this solution? Yeah, what benefit he's trying to create for himself, or like what opportunities he's trying to create for himself. Also success metrics, if we can measure or can understand whether our project was successful, whether we can deliver a certain value, and if we can definitely say that we did that. That knowledge will really help us to understand where we should go to, will even help us to make implementation decisions further on, just knowing what metrics are we targeting, or like what kind of like objectives are we targeting. we need to have a vision statement. So we need to have a vision of what we're trying to create, basically like what kind of product it is, who will be users, what needs those users have, like what features we must create for them to make their life better. Let's put it like this, and what like business objectives again we're targeting. Of course, we need to understand like the major features and the priorities, and usually when you have like maybe not so experienced team or like beginners, they usually target just this, like what are the features and what are the priorities. But this stuff is much more important. Sometimes it's even much more important to understand these 3 points right here than to get like exact list of features. Of course, we need to understand who are the stakeholders and who will have the requirements to our product, who will influence it, etc. Must not forget about non-functional requirements. And I know in some cases they are not taken into consideration, but that is also a mistake. You must understand what non-functional requirements or like quality attributes at least will be applicable for the solution to make sure you will not underestimate the efforts. Assumptions, dependencies, limitations, exclusions, like making sure that we specify what's out of scope. And sometimes what we have, let's say I had this situation that on the pre-sale stage, we have seen one view of the product that we understand that there should be one type of scope. But when we went to the discovery stage, we realized that it's like 50% of what we saw on the pre-sale will not be doing, and the client is okay with that. And this is something that we should specifically usually like state that, look, this is out of scope, because this will be like somewhere in the emails, in the documents which were like created earlier, and we don't want to like confuse people and give them a chance to squeeze something into the scope which we agreed is not there. So this is also like part which is expected from a BA to make sure that we understand like what's in scope, at least for first release or like MVP solution, let's put it this way, and what's out of scope. And all of that actually is a structure of like almost all of that is a structure of a vision and scope document. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with that document. But and I would say like earlier, maybe like five years ago, that the outcome of the discovery stage would be a vision and scope document. But now it can be a vision and scope document. It can be a structured document with all of these sections filled in properly in a certain manner. But it also can be something like a PowerPoint presentation, like where you have like 30 slides that has all the same information there, structured and visualized in a different manner, different from a vision and scope document, but still given the answers to all of that questions. And you may have it just as a Miro board, and I think this is like what we're usually doing right now. So you just have a Miro board with a lot of visual representation of basically the same information, but developed as part of the workshops during discovery. And this is what you hand off as your discovery deliverable. So there are a lot of different options, and I would say like the format of the like final deliverable is much less important. What is really important is that you have all that info defined during the discovery stage. So, and that is what usually is expected from a BA. And now the question, how do I go about this? Yeah, how do I deliver all of that, especially in a limited time frame? So let's just talk about that. And let me check if we have any new questions. Not so far. Okay, but I encourage you. Oh, we just had one. Okay, so let me see. How do you handle conflicting requirements or different opinions from stakeholders during discovery phase? Can you share any tips on managing such situations and reaching a consensus? Yes, Dmitro, thank you for a great question. So usually what I would advise, and I think like I was under the impression that a lot of people are doing that, or a lot of companies are doing that, but eventually I realized that not everyone doing discovery in this manner. So what I would advise is having workshops with the clients. So what you need to have, and this is also like referring back to what Elizabeth said in the chat, that stakeholders availability is really important. So what you need to have is to have all key stakeholders brought together on a certain workshop, so you can basically facilitate discussion between them and make them really like talk to each other, discuss the differences in their opinion, and come to a single solution with your help, of course, and with your advisory. And in some cases it can be simple. In some cases it is almost impossible. But like what we see in the most of the cases, that people which are brought to the workshop and they have this discussion between themselves, this discussion is already a great result for the business. Because in some cases, and I've seen many cases like that, people from the same company or from the same organization, they didn't have a chance to talk to each other in that like way, or in that like format that we present, or like we put them in. And this discussion, they're like uncovering a lot of things about their businesses, like oh really, do we do stuff like that? Oh really, is it really how we operate with that information? And these are the questions that we usually like hear people just talking to each other. And this is actually like, that would be the answer to your question. Have a workshop, be a facilitator, put people together on the same like meeting or in the same room, and like lead them through that conversation so they can work out their differences, or they may end up understanding they have a complete different vision on the project. And we had the case like that. I remember we had two stakeholders, like I'm not sure if they were co-founders of that company, but like maybe they were co-founders. Let's say they were co-founders. And when we started this discussion, they just realized that all this time before they were talking to each other, but they were not hearing each other. And they had a completely different like vision on what the product should be about. And that was a very like good eye opener for them. So they said like, let's take a pause. Let's stop this. And we really need to talk and to understand where we want to drive our business. So that was helpful. I wouldn't say it was helpful for our cause, but it was really helpful for the client. So I'd say that's the answer to that question, Mitro. Thank you for asking that. So answered. And we have a follow-up question from Marta. If worse comes to worse, do you just play the influence versus interest card? I'd say on the discovery stage, you cannot really be sure about the influence and interest. I'd say it's something there that you would develop later on when you get to know every stakeholder. I wouldn't like risk playing that card at the very beginning, because I can never be sure like who has the proper influence at this point. And I had experience where we had a certain stakeholder which we really thought was some kind of like just a fun guy, but he didn't he didn't have any influence, but we were really wrong. And eventually he had a huge influence on the project, on the development stage, and we had really a lot of pain about that, just because we didn't let's say we didn't analyze, or didn't like our analysis didn't result in a proper like evaluation of his influence. So that's kind of risky to play that card, but it's always good to have a decision maker in the group. So when you're like building up your discovery agenda, and we will talk about that a bit later, but I will just give you a little bit teaser. You have to make sure that you have a decision maker present on these workshops. Otherwise, you will just end up just in a lot of talks, but no decision will be made. So we need to have a decision maker as a stakeholder in the group from the client side, I mean. Okay, got it. So let's move on, and I will just do a short pause a bit later and answer the other questions. Okay, I see a question in the chat. What are the main steps in preparation for the discovery activities? I will answer that with the presentation. So just be a bit patient. So how do I go about project discovery? That's exactly where we're coming from. So this is a framework that I like to apply, and it's pretty basic, I would say. So this is like the thing that I would suggest to use to plan your discovery activities and to go about the discovery. So first of all, like this is like the check boxes. Let's talk about it as a check boxes that we need to check in, that we need to check as a result of a discovery. So definitely what we need to start from is to understand in the business background and the key stakeholders. This is like the main inputs. You cannot have a proper discovery when you don't understand who your key stakeholders are and who you need to be asking your questions, who do you need to put together, who do you need to be making those decisions and giving you the information. And you have to understand the business background. So you have to make your homework, you have to research, you have to dive deep into what this business is about. And God bless YouTube. Right now, there's really a lot of videos about like almost every type of business or technology, and it's really easy to learn that stuff. Like I remember, like again, 5 years ago, I had to like spend a lot of time reading some researches and articles and stuff like that. But just like a couple of years ago, I just put a certain domain in the search bar in YouTube, and you get like a lot of videos about that, and you can just watch it and learn really fast. And what you need to learn about it is just what this business is about, how money is made in this business, what are the key drivers, let's put it like that, and just learn about the terminology. Not all the businesses are simple. Definitely, they're just really complicated domains, but at least there's something where you can learn about that, and you can like invest some time into understanding what that is about. And then oh yeah, and now great point there, Kate. And now we can even ask AI again. Yes, ChatGPT made it even more easier for us. So there is no like excuses anymore that you don't have an experience or you didn't have time to prepare. So there's no excuses for us anymore. And then here's like the framework. So basically, as you may heard, I come from like an enterprise architecture background, and I'm really like an enterprise kind of guy. So I had like a fair share of work in different enterprises and delivering projects inside those enterprises. So I treat this as sort of like a business domain, like the application, the data, and the technology layer. Let's put it like this. It's not one-to-one, but similar. And it doesn't matter where you start from, like filling in those checkboxes, but you as long as you start from here, from the first layer. So you need to understand like the business need, the success factors, and this is what we talked about like early on. But these are really the key. And if you don't understand this like things right there, if you don't understand what is the business need, there's no point of going deeper, because you will only get more and more questions, and you will like lose all the context if you don't understand what we're trying to achieve as a business, or what clients trying to achieve as a business. All of that will have no context to you. So just start here, ask the questions that you need to ask, and don't stop until you understand what this project is about from the business standpoint. Like, what value does it bring? And always remember, clients are paying money for that, so they are expecting to get some return, right? So what kind of return would it be? Where is the business benefit, and how we can measure, like what success factors can we have there? So in many cases, it's very important to understand at least the key processes, and that's also like about like what this business is about, like what are the main processes there, like what's the value stream, let's say, or like what is the core of the business, or at least the core of the things that we're trying to put in our system. And understanding the business rules, like whether we have any like standards, compliances, internal business rules that we need to follow or automate. So that's where you start. And then you can go like in any like order. There's no particular schema behind those boxes. So, but definitely what you need to understand is like do I understand the users and user roles from the system? Yeah, I have to understand it. I need to ask my questions. I need to do my workshops. I need to like elicit the requirements, and I need to understand that information. So once I have this answer to this question, I say, okay, this checkbox for me is checked. And then we talk about significant use cases. So we don't need to understand like every single use case that there can be in the system, but significant, yeah, most important use cases, the core, the central use cases of the system, they are also called architecture drivers sometimes. So these are the things that we need to know, and how to depict and how to differentiate significant use case from insignificant one, by knowing what's the business is about, yeah, by knowing what is the success factors and what are the key processes. So this will help you to understand the significant, what use case is significant or what's not. So once you know the key stakeholders, you need to be sure that you know their concerns and you know what they're like expecting from the product. And you may end up here with a very various expectations from your stakeholders, and the stakeholders may have really different goals about that project. And also, again, to help you to understand what's more important and what's the priority is the business need. And I will like later on show you how we can apply like a business objective model, let's say, to understand that and to validate the necessities against it. Talking about features, here we talk about the functionality, but the functionality which is, let's say, a differentiator, let's say, which makes the user's experience different from what they have right now. And if that's a commercial project, what will make users pay for that product? Yeah, if it's something internal, what would make users switch to that product? Yeah, what would make them to really pick that product, and how it will enhance their and improve their experience. And then we go like we also need to understand the system context, like whether we have like any other let's say systems or third-party solutions that we need to integrate with, yeah, or do we have any other like IT solutions that we will take data from, or we will need to produce data for. What are the main interfaces? How will we communicate this data for outside of our system? And what types of data is there? Yeah, so it's also like there are no IT projects without data. It's always about data. So some are data centric, like you may have this big data type of products, but any product have a certain types of data in it. So we need to know what are the core data, yeah, what data we are operating with. And then don't forget about the quality attributes and the non-functional requirements. And of course, you will like once you get through all that, you will definitely understand if we have any constraints coming from the business side or coming from the system side, or of some like a user side of the system. And also, if you have time, don't forget about the transition peculiarities, like whether we need to shift maybe users from an old system to a new solution, whether we need to migrate the data, whether we need to change something significantly from like maybe existing solution to a newer solution. This will also be a part of the scope of the potential project. Yeah, so we don't forget about that. So I always take that like check boxes like with me, and I use that to build up my agenda. I use that to plan my meetings. I use that to make sure if I'm not forgetting anything. And it's pretty simple, and you can have it on your iPhone in your notes as a checklist, but you can produce a lot of artifacts like just basing on that checklist. So let me check whether we have something in the chat. True business need may be hard to get working with IT department of the enterprise. At least you can verify if they know it themselves. That is true, Max. But then if we cannot get that, we need to raise that. Yeah, we need to highlight that question, that we don't understand that. Maybe we can find some other stakeholders that can pay us a visit and talk to us about that. Who's paying? Who is sponsoring that project? So let's also like try to break outside the circle of the IT guys that we're talking about, that we're talking to. But that's true. That's a valid comment. We have a question from Anastasia. Success metrics, how to elicit, how to validate that those metrics are attainable, that those metrics are attainable and make sense. Do you somehow map those metrics to requirements at the discovery phase? Well, yes and no. So I will a bit later show you one of the frameworks that you may be using. But basically, like my answer would be just by asking the questions. Yeah, like, so how can we measure, or how can we know if we achieve that goal? So if you talk about certain goals, let's say we had a very interesting talk with one of our clients, and we started that conversation. He again, like they all do, started to talk about like features, like what features will we have? And I said, yeah, can we talk about features a bit, just in a second, but can you tell me what is like the primary goal that you're trying to achieve with that solution? And he said, like, we want to like enhance our client experience. Yeah, like improve our client experience. And I said, okay, but how do you know that the client experience is not good at the moment? Like, how do you know that? What like information do you use to make that decision? And we talked about like, how do they judge whether the client experience is good or not? And then we talked about like how the solution can impact that metric. And this, by saying metric, it's not always a certain number. Yeah, it may be like, I mean, eventually it will go to a number, but it can be like user feedback, or like some sort of just a number of calls to a support or whatever. It's not something that you like measure on the regular basis, but you can get this data. And there you take the conversation from there. So just by asking proper questions, you usually get to the point. Not asking straightforward, what are the success metrics, but asking the questions to get to that answer. And yeah, and we will talk about business objective model. Let me check the time, because I feel like I talk really long. So we have like, we're like in one hour, so we have maybe 30 minutes to go, or 20. I think we can make it happen in time. Okay, so we had a question like, what are the stages of the discovery phase? So it's basically very simple. In a nutshell, you have a kickoff, where you have basically the expectation management. You meet with all the stakeholders, you explain what is going to happen, what is your like plan for this discovery, what are you planning to achieve at the end, and you kind of like start everything. Yeah, so you align with everyone on the client end and on your team end to start. Then, like as I said, we focus on the business side of things, and this can be very fast, but in some cases it may take longer. But I really advise not to skip that step, because otherwise, like, you will have to, constantly get back, and not understanding why the requirements are changing, or like what client is trying to tell us. Because there's also this very interesting, let's say, how to say that, very interesting experience that you may have with a client, that clients are trying to communicate their business needs, but through requirements, through functional requirements. So they're saying like, we need to have this search, or we need to have this button that will do this. But in reality, they're just trying to communicate a certain business need, but they don't know how to communicate that. They don't know how to explain it, and they're trying to explain it through functionality. So that's an interesting phenomenon. And I would like advise you to think about that a little bit. And when you're like upcoming conversation with the client, maybe keep that in mind, and try to observe whether it's really true or not. And then we go into our functional requirements and non-functional requirements. So basically understanding like what is the scope, the priorities, like whatever design ideas we may have. And if you have a chance to have a quality attribute workshop to talk about non-functional requirements, that would be something that I would advise, and definitely have a chance to do that if we have time. So this is something which not obligatory, but if we have time, we may also talk about some processes that we may want to set up on the upcoming project, like some like requirements management rules, or like what type of like communication rules we will have, like how frequently we will communicate, like where we will store the requirements, how we will operate, like what formats we will use. Again, this is something that you may clarify it later on, but if you have time and if you're talking to your stakeholders, you may also use that. And then you wrap up. So you present the results, and that's it. That's a discovery phase. So one more thing that I'd like to say about like when you conducting the discovery, and now when we know what we need to do, we're going to talk about how to get prepared for that. Is to work in kind of in breadth, but not in depth. Like it's in depth versus in breadth approach. I will explain what I mean. So like the mistake that you may wanna the mistake that you may wanna avoid during the discovery phase is not trying to go in depth detailed about like every, let's say, use case or every feature that you see. So the discovery phase is not about having detailed requirements. So as we said, we have a really limited time frame. So don't try to have the specification as a result of the discovery. Don't try to have all the detailed requirements like ready. It is impossible because you have a limited time frame. So if you go like in-depth approach, so trying to understand in details about each use case, you may like work like, I don't know, 80% details of like 20% of use cases, but of some use case you may just know that they exist but have no idea what they are. And in some cases you may just even not know that we have a certain use case in this system. So you may like lose it, you may miss it, and you may not include it in the scope, but it is there. So I'd suggest to go with this approach and just try to not to go in very much detail, but just to understand what type of use cases there are, what are they about, and that's it. But try to understand like what like the scope of the system would be. Yeah, like try to identify like what types of use cases you may have, but not trying to go in very deep detail about each and every use case, because you will not have the time. It was kind of hard to explain that, but I hope I made it. Yeah, if you can comment on that. So another question, can you please map this 2-3 weeks to these steps? Oh yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go back, and we'll talk about the preparation later on. It will also add some details, but let's go back to that slide. So a kickoff is like a first day. So let's say it's day 1. And the business objectives, I would say you would need like 2 days. It also depends how exposed you are to the client. Yeah, but I'm talking about like on-site approach. So if you talk to all the major stakeholders and you will compile a certain vision about like the business of the client and you will validate it, I'd say like 2 days is more than enough for that. Even maybe 1 day is fine if you do it right. And then the rest, let's say, so we say two weeks. So we say 1 week goes for the functional requirement, and the other week will go for like validating everything, making sure you have the full picture, and also talking about non-functional requirements, quality attributes, and coming up with the final result. So you can spread that. So like you say, we take maybe like 10% of time here, 5% of time here, 10% of time here, say like 70% of time here, and the rest is the wrap up. And then depends how many weeks you have, you would have it. I hope it helped. Okay. So let's talk about how to get prepared to discovery. So let's say you're in the situation that discovery is about to start, like in a few weeks. What needs to be done? Yeah, and usually we talk about like knowing what like, let's say, what deliverables we need to create or what pieces of information we need to get from the client. We can build up our discovery agenda. And discovery agenda, there are several things that can feed the discovery agenda. So we said that we need to be prepared. We need to have the client's background or the business background. So this is all the research that you can do prior to the actual discovery. You may use YouTube, you may use ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence sources. You may use like whatever documentation is available, maybe from a pre-sales stage already. But what we need to know is like information about the client, his like the model of his business, like the company structure, if we need that. Maybe some major competitors, if it's applicable. We also need to understand the industry, the domain, making sure we understand what are the main like concepts in this market, what are the common challenges, trends. It usually can be found in some industry researches. You may look for like Gartner research or Accenture research, or Deloitte is doing a lot of interesting researches on certain industries, and you can really find a lot of information there. You can, of course, use the information gathered during the pre-sale phase, and also like trying to understand like if we have some best practices or maybe some typical solution relevant for this domain, even inside the company. Yeah, so maybe like do a research inside. Maybe we had a similar project already, or we have a group of people who worked in this domain and have experience in this domain. They can like, you can book 1 hour with them and ask some questions, and they will help you to understand what that domain is all about. Then this is the opportunity we usually don't think about. Really, as us as a big company, we have a lot of people with different experience, but sometimes we just forget to ask our colleagues if they can help us with something, and they usually can. And then we need to plan the deliverables. Yeah, and we talked about what deliverables we need to create. So they're here listed. So this is when you come up with your agenda. And when you're compiling your agenda, and usually each like member of a team has his own agenda, has his own things that he wants to talk about to the client stakeholders. But at the end of the day, you will have to align with whatever team you have for the discovery, that you're aligned with whatever like meetings and sessions you want to have with the client. But what you need to take into account, first of all, is the stakeholders' availability. This is coming back to the comment that we have earlier. We need to make sure that the key stakeholders on the client side are available and will participate in the sessions. Also, like make sure that we align like within our team, that like, for example, if we're going like as a business analyst, solution architect, and designer, that we all talk to each other and we all agree on what sessions we're going to have and who's going to lead which session, and like what timelines we will have. So that's also important. As I said, make sure that the client's side stakeholders are available. So there are like some again, unsuccessful cases when we had this story when a team went to discovery on site to the client, and they arrived to their office, and like the client representative said, yeah, you know what happened, like all of these guys that you want to talk about, they went to some sort of convention in a different state, so we will have to wait until they return. And the team like waited for 4 days, just simply like sitting in the office and basically doing nothing. And that was a real disaster. So you need to make sure that the client representatives will be available for the sessions that you planned. I would also, like for the on-site visit, would advise not to plan more than 4 hours a day to work with the client representatives, because first of all, they will not be available the whole day for you. They have their own jobs, and they will like not have all the time for you, and you would need some time on your own or a time with your team to analyze all the information that you received and what you elicited. So don't plan more than 4 hours a day with a client. If you can plan 4 hours, great, but sometimes it can be even less, especially if it's an offsite type of discovery. Also very important to plan a daily sync ups on your end, so between the team. make sure you're all aligned on the information that you received, because sometimes sitting on the same meeting, like for example, me, architect, and the designer, we're sitting at the same meeting and we're listening to the same like person, and then we're like starting to align between each other, and we realize that all three of us heard different story, had different information, and then we had to check again, so who understand it right. And this is important to have this daily sync ups and making sure that we all are aligned and we all on the same page, because it's very easy to lose track when we are like being in that intensive requirements elicitation sessions. And also I would suggest to plan summary sessions with the client. Well, each day would be ideal, but most probably it will not be possible. So plan it at least like each maybe second or third day. So you have a kind of summary, what you already have like achieved, where we are at this point, what we know right now, what we still need to understand. So just, make sure that we are like, let's say, understand where we are on our discovery agenda and if we are on track or not. And again, this is more like for the on-site. Do not plan anything for the last day of your visit, because usually you will not make anything like on that day. You will just have time to like get things together, get some final goodbyes or something like that. So don't plan anything important on the last day. So it's better to have a buffer of some sort. So yeah, the slides will not be shared, unfortunately, but you can make screenshots. That's allowed. And yeah, and we will have the recording of that session on our channel, so you will have access to that session. But we will not share the slides. Example of the discovery agenda. This is again just an example of the structure, and this is how I'd like to structure that. So we'll have some time, you'll have some dates here. If you have a visit plan, for example, or some sessions planned with a client, you need to specify what type of stakeholders you need for the sessions. And this is also what will help you to align with the client, whether they will be available. Like you may not know the people's names at this point, but just saying like, look, we need someone who can talk about like the technology side. Like we need someone who can talk about the architecture. We need someone who makes decisions on that. We need someone who can explain like how this works, and the client or the client representatives will say, okay, this guy can help you, or we can invite this person, or you can have this product owner and he will cover like most of your questions. And it's better to have some sort of deliverable plan as a result of each session, so it will be clear for you and for the client, like why are we doing that, what is the goal of that session, and what are we trying to achieve. So it's really important to get prepared, to prepare your agenda, but also and yeah, the agenda can be like made on the several like days, yeah, so you can just have it planned like in this example, but also make sure that you understand that it will not go as planned. Yeah, so it will never go as planned, but it doesn't mean that you should be prepared. You should be prepared, and while having the good plan, it will help you to adjust to the some unexpected turns. And I would also like advise to have two versions of your agenda, like a full one and like MVP one. Let's put it this way, where you just like, let's say if you have an agenda for 5 days, make another one just for 2 days, but with the most important sessions which you really need to take, and just to be sure that you have at least those sessions if something will go not as planned, because you can never foresee what will happen like during these 2 weeks or 3 weeks on the client side. You may have some crisis there. Like we had this case, for example, we were planning to go on site. I had my suitcase packed, I had the ticket purchased, and like the morning of the flight, I wake up and I get the message from the account executive saying like we need to postpone because like they are having the audit on their end, like the client is having the audit and all the stakeholders will be busy. And that was really unexpected, and like eventually we would have to postpone the discovery and the start of the project for many months. But this is something that happens, and it's something that definitely will happen, but you have to be prepared for that. Okay, so let's check on the yeah, I'll leave this slide open. So what is also important to prepare is some templates, just not to waste time while you're like on site or while you're like doing the discovery to create them. So these are the templates you may need for your work. Just leave that slide open and see what questions we have in the Q&A. So we have one from Elizabeth. Usually we have WBS as a result of a discovery. If we don't go deep, how should we estimate the complexity time more accurately? Only by adding a range and confidence percentage? Not only, but usually what you have on the discovery stage are experienced people. Yeah. So if you have a, let's say, a use case that says we need to have a report of like a certain information, you really don't need to get in too deep, like what fields you need to have in this report. You understand what type of data you have, you understand if it's available, you understand like if we store it somewhere, you can build your estimate on that. And of course you add some percentage of like risks, and of course you need to create this like contingency fund. But really you don't have to have all the details when you have experienced like architect with you to be able to estimate it. Again, using this percentage or contingency or the like a risk factor will help you to be more or less in the range of a proper estimate. Let's put it like that. Okay, another question from Anonymous. What steps should be taken in case every next day during the elicitation session requirements are controversial and they are opposite to what was discussed a day ago? That's a very bad situation. Let's define that. But in my experience, this happens when we miss this like very important step of understanding the business need. So maybe that was the reason in your case. So I would just say go back to understanding the business need and the goal and the vision of the product. Yeah. So you may have like, for example, a vision, a product vision workshop where you just identify what are we trying to create and for what reason and what are we trying to solve. So align on that part first, because in most cases, like from my experience, this situation when the requirements change a lot, it happens when we don't have a common vision or stakeholders don't have a common vision and common understanding what is the business need. And once you have it, it will be easy to validate whether this requirement or this change is needed, because you would validate it against the business need. You would say, okay, how does this requirement helps to achieve the goal? How does this requirement helps with our business need? How will it affect this, like say, success metric or whatever? And if you don't have an answer to that question, that means you don't need it, and it will be obvious to all of the stakeholders present. So that could be one of the ways to tackle that problem. Okay, and we have another question from Alexander. Discovery versus assessment, is it the same? It's hard to answer that question because I don't know what like definition you would put in the word assessment, but for me it's different, because a discovery, like I will explain my point and then you may see if that's what you meant or not. A discovery is when we're trying to understand what we need to create or what we need to solve, let's say, with our solution. An assessment is understanding the current state, the as-is state, let's say, or the baseline, what happened, what is there, what's going on. So discovery can partially take as-is state analysis, of course, into account. So I would say assessment would be a part of the discovery, but again, that's under the assumption that I understand what you imply by the assessment. Okay, so we had the templates prepared, and now let's talk about some techniques as I promised you. So we will not talk about some conventional techniques, but rather on something which are usually omitted. Just a few ones. First one is the glossary, and really, like when I was, and I'm sure we have some people who have read Babok in their time here, and maybe also preparing for certification. And there I was like really laughing about this, because like almost every step there, every input, that you need to create started that you have to create a glossary. And we were just laughing around that because what's worth of the glossary? I mean, you should start with some important things like understanding like a business need, or like understanding what you need to create. Why the glossary? But really, the glossary, it's something that makes communication much more effective. So if you are using the common glossary, you like, I don't know, spend like 50% less time trying to understand, take this example right now. Let me find this question. So Alexander asks the question, is the discovery and assessment the same thing? It's hard for me to answer that question because I don't know what assessment means in the glossary of Alexander. So I need to make an assumption. We need to talk about that. We need to like do you mean this? Oh, I mean the different thing. Oh yeah. And we will like spend a lot of time just talking around definition. So once you're on the discovery, make sure that you're specifying all the terms and you know the definition of all the terms that the clients use, for example. And if the client says, let's say, I don't know, some business terminology, like for example, an offering. An offering can mean a lot of things, yeah? So you have to ask the question, what do you mean by that? Can you explain what the offering means to me? And you get that definition, and you then like add it to your glossary, and you develop that glossary, and you're making sure that everyone on your team and on the client side are using the same terminology, and that this terminology meaning the same thing. And then it definitely will go into the system. Yeah, it can go on the like admin side of the system, or on the client side of the system, or the same thing can be called differently when we're talking from an admin side, or from the client side, or from like a system side, like what it's called in the database, and it may have a certain abbreviation, etc. So it's really saves a lot of the time, and it saves a lot of the confusion when you do work with the glossary. And I know like it sounds like really like, yeah, of course we know that we need to work on the glossary, but in many cases that gets omitted, and you have a lot of problems just with not understanding the terminology that the client have used. And the mistake that you can make here, so let's say a client uses the word offering, and you say, yeah, okay, I will not bother asking this question, I will just Google it or ask ChatGPT about that. But the problem here is that what client calls an offering, it may be something that it's not something that Google will call an offering, or a ChatGPT will call an offering, because you don't have a client context, and you don't understand where he's coming from. So like ask these questions and make sure you understand all the terminology, and build up the glossary and communicate that glossary to everyone on your team. So make sure that you're all using the same terminology and understanding what that means. That would really save a lot of time in communication. So, okay, I have some people agreeing with me finally in the chat. That's cool. Okay, next thing. This is something that goes well along with the glossary, and this is something that can help you to align all stakeholders together. And that in a few cases I use that as a workshop. So trying to build a concept model of what, again, terms we have in our like world, in our business, or in our system, whatever, and what are like the relationship between this terminology. So this is a basic thing that we just call a conceptual model, or conceptual diagram, we call it as well. So basically, these are all the nouns and the verbs that you use around your business, like that the client uses around the business. And what we did, we brought the stakeholders together and asked them, let's try to build the concept model of like what like this product will be all about. And we defined all the key entities basically just on the business level, and depict the relationship between them. And it was very I would say even like engaging event. So you could really bring stakeholders to the same understanding of the terminology, of the relationship, and all the understanding of what we're talking about. So these are some of the examples like from the real projects, I like some let's say sensitive information I took out, but these are the outcomes of our common work. And it really helps to put, and this is something that I would suggest you do from the very beginning, when you're on the stage of like understanding the business needs and whatever. And this would really bring all of you on the same page and give you a really clear understanding and tools how to operate and what questions to ask, what terminology to use, in what relations, and etc. And definitely you will not come up to the like ideal picture from the very beginning, but just working with that type of task or what that type of like artifact, it will really like build a proper relationship between like you and the stakeholders, and build an understanding around what like business we're working with. So that is something that I would suggest you could implement in your discovery workshops. I really see rarely that it's done. I don't know if some of you have done that. Just let me know in the chat if you had an experience with such exercises. I would be interested to know. It works well when you're working with like complicated systems, and you have a lot of entities and a lot of relationship between these entities, and by entities I mean like business entities. Yeah, context model is also a good thing, but concept is a bit different thing. The context model, I would say, it's more conventional way of doing the discovery. It's one of the must-have artifacts. Okay, so, and one more thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is the business objective model. So this is something that you can also implement, and this is again based on like learning what the business is all about and what are the business objectives of our initiative or of our project. So business objective model is a model which is based on like three main concepts. First is the business problem. So it's a type of like an issue that is preventing a business from achieving its goals. Yeah, so all businesses have their goals for them. Yeah, they existing for some reason. They are trying to achieve something. They can be big goals, they can be small goals, yeah, like strategic ones and more like objectives. But and when everything is fine, you usually don't need to change anything, right? But usually when we come in the picture when we need a change, when the client needs a change. So we need to understand what's the problem and what he's trying to solve. Then there's the business objective. That's like a quantifiable way that the business will know when the business problem has been solved. So how would, like, if the problem would be solved, like how will we know about that? What we will achieve? Yeah, what we need to achieve to make sure that the problem is solved. And the third one is the product concept. This is something, the solution that actually that you will need to create. You as a IT company need to create for that. For the client, to enable him to achieve this objective and to solving this business problem. And what you do together with the client, you try to build this business objective model about this case, about this project. And let's say the conventional way of building the business objective model is you start from the business problem of a higher level. And you trying to understand, like, okay, we have a certain problem, but what would it look like if this problem like were solved? So we need to identify a certain objective for this problem, something that we need to achieve, and it can be done on like a business level. And but in some cases, you will need to ask the question, like, what is preventing us from achieving this objective today? Like, why can't we just do it? Yeah, what's keeping us away? And you may identify like a business problem of a lower level. So you may say like, this is like higher level, this is like level 1, this would be like level 2. And there are also some business objectives that that you can identify that can help you to solve that problem eventually, which will lead to solving a certain business need. And you can have like 3 or 4 levels of the in-depth understanding of what we are like trying to solve. And then you come up to a certain product concept. So basically this is the solution. So we're asking ourselves, so what can we build in order to achieve this objective, yeah, and solve the problem. But this would be the conventional way. But usually the clients, they come to us with the product concept already. They say, yeah, we need this system, we need these features, we need this type of product operating. And you as a business analyst will have to go backwards. Yeah, you have to go in this direction and ask like why do we need this feature? Yeah, what will it help us to achieve? And if the client struggles with explaining that, you may ask like, what is the impact of not having that feature? Like, let's imagine we will not do that. What will happen? Yeah, what effect will it take? And you will identify like a certain business objective that will not be reached if we don't have this feature. And then we go like, okay, but why do we need that objective? Yeah, so we're trying to solve a certain problem. And you will then identify a problem, and then you can just ask, and why is that a problem? Why do we think that that is a problem? And you say like, yeah, because it cannot, it keeps us away from reaching a certain objective. And you can go on and going backwards and trying to understand. And this is how you come up to a real like a business problem that we will solve by introducing this product. And now, and you can add some metrics to that, as we talked about, like understanding whether we can measure it, how can we understand that the problem is solved? How do we know that? So you ask a lot of questions when you're trying to build this model, and together with the client, you're like coming to this business perspective, let's say. And then when you have it, it will be really easy for you to answer like whether we need this feature or not. So this is like the case when the anonymous person asks the question, what to do with, will we have like new requirements each day? So once you know what is the business objective that you're trying to reach, you ask the question, okay, you bring in this new requirement or bring in this new feature. How does it help to achieve that? Because this is the reason for our project. This is like what we all agreed on. This is what we all worked out together. So how is this feature helping to achieve that? And if you have the answer, the clear answer to that, then yes, we need this feature. But if we don't know, or it's just someone who just wants to have it for his own reasons, but it has nothing to do with reaching the business objective, then we don't need this feature. It looks similar to an impact map, but it's not. it looks similar. That is true, but it's not. It's different kind of dependencies and different kind of like relationships on that. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Yes, that's very true, Irina. So, and it's very hard to think of a problem, not to focus on the solution. And this is what we as business analysts, when we facilitate our workshops, will need to do. So we will now go into reviewing the real case that happened to me, and it will take maybe like 10 minutes. I know I went a little bit overboard with this webinar. I usually underestimate my abilities to talk, but yeah, thank you for staying with me extra time, and we will need like maybe 10 more minutes. So just keep up. And let me just answer 2 more questions in the Q&A box. So we have another one from Anonymous. When the project is about rewriting the old system for the same but faster performance with the same functions, how to understand a business requirement? Business requirement to improve performance? Well, that's not a question to me. That's a question to the business. Exactly right. Why do we need why do we need to improve the performance? Because just to make it faster? No. Like imagine a client has to spend like $100,000 just to make a system run faster. For what? For what do I need to spend this money? It means that there is a problem. Yeah, there is a problem with the performance, which leads to a certain effect on the business level. Maybe users are not happy and they are like leaving this platform. They are losing money. Or maybe like because of the low performance, some calculations are not being made in time and company losing money, or like a management cannot see a proper numbers when they need to make a decision and the company loses money. So think in that direction, like what return will the customer have for investing, let's say $100,000 into rewriting the system. It's never just about rewriting it. It's never just about making a better performance. It's about the business like factors, and us as BAs have to understand what those factors are. And it's always like a trap when you say it's just rewriting with the same functions. The functions will also be rewritten. They will also be updated. I guarantee you that. So, like, make sure you're not like fall into this trap. And one more question from Vitaly: what's the best way to learn how to build business objective model, conceptual model, and other useful things? Well, it's kind of a hard question to answer. Practice always is the best way. I would suggest start practicing with your team, focusing on something, on the process, let's say, within your team. Like you may identify some process problems that you may have. Try to build a business objective model around that. Yeah, like you will have maybe some practice within your team without like practicing on the real clients. Yeah, and when you will be ready with that, you can practice that on the real clients. Or maybe you can also go to Softserve courses. I'm not sure if we have a workshop about business objective model. I'm sure that we don't have that one, but we have a lot of cool workshops on like the 10 techniques course. It's all around the workshop. It's all practical. So have a look in that program. Maybe you will find something interesting there, and just maybe find some workshops around business objective model. Maybe we should create one. Actually, it's maybe an idea for us. So thank you, Vitaly. Okay, this we have answered. So let's move on to the case, and please also add your questions to the Q&A session. So I will then answer them after my last slide. Okay, so here's a project case. So I will just quickly explain what the project was about. So it was a client from the United States, and they had already running business, already running solution, and the business was about the following. So their operators, or like the workers, let's say from the back office, they were like contacting investors, and usually those were like rich senior citizens, and proposing them to invest into real estate. And usually they were like using telephone, and they had a very simple like web page with like their services, but most of the communication went through telephone. And what the business was about, they were like suggesting certain portfolios of investments, and they were like using really basic tools for that. They had like an Excel, very big Excel model, let's put it this way, where they calculate all those portfolios, and they they helped these investors to invest in real estate. And it's actually a very nice way of investing, but it's like a long-term investment, so they usually return like in 10 years or something. So they built some nice portfolios for their customers. They helped them earn good interest on their investment. They consulted them on the better portfolios, and they earned interest on each deal. So that was like how the clients got their bucks, and this is how this company get their bucks. And what their competitive advantage was, they had a real like good database and understanding of like how to build those portfolios. They were really good at that, and this is how they made their business work. So then they asked us for a project, and our initial view of that project was the following. So we were seeing after the pre-sale stage that their only concern was like low earnings, and they wanted to increase earnings by selling their product. So what they basically wanted to do, that was our vision back then, to create a certain product that they could sell to a similar companies, like real like software that they can sell to a similar companies, that those companies could use their algorithms and their knowledge and their database to build like good portfolios for their clients, and they would like earn a lot of money by like just selling this product. So that was our initial vision. So what we've seen as the product scope is just to replicate the existing logic that they had in their Excel files in the application. So what we were seeing that we just need to analyze all the formulas, how this all of that is calculated, and there were like a lot of epics built around that. Then we will need to create like a better client experience, so build a platform, like a web platform for their clients, that they will not use the telephone but rather go on the platform and communicate through that platform. They would have their own cabinet with their portfolios. They can see how many interests they already have, how are their investments doing, etc. And that was very important part is multi-tenancy. So they would be able to sell this product, this platform, basically with this logic to their competitors. That was the idea. Yeah, Marta has to run. Okay, you can you can check the recording. Yeah, sorry for taking that long, but please stay till the very end. Like it's this like the last 3 slides. So this was our vision back then, and then we started with the business objective model. We tried to do this business objective model workshop with the company CTO and with the co-founders. And what happened? We understand that we identified problems that they did not talk about. Yeah, they were just saying about the solution, but what we realized that actually to build this portfolio, it takes a lot of there's a lot of human error. So there are a lot of actually like mistakes when they create the portfolios, and as a result, they don't have a very good portfolios eventually. So this is what was not uncovered by us at the first stage, but applying the business objective model help us, and interviewing them and talking to them help us to identify these problems. And also this vision have stayed with the increase in their earnings by selling their product. So they wanted this multi-tenancy, and they want to improve their client experience. But then the question raised, how would replicating the existing logic help with these two causes, right? If we just do the same what they have in their Excel, it will not help them. Yeah, they will still have bad portfolios, and they will still have a lot of human errors. And what we realized also, that they actually, and this is what they didn't tell us at the beginning, wanted to outsource this human work to Philippines. And they were really worried because their like employees were making those mistakes, and they were really worried that the employees in Philippines will be making even more mistakes. So those were the real problems that we uncovered with their business, and that brought us to an absolutely different view of the project. Yeah, so we needed to eliminate that problem because they wanted to outsource their work to Philippines. We needed to make sure that there will not be like a human factor. Yeah, so we'll have to build and enforce the business rules that will not, that will not let them make those mistakes. Then they were also like evaluating a third-party solution, like a portfolio optimization solution, to make sure that they will create much better portfolios. But for that, they needed much extended data models. So they couldn't use what they had at this point, but we had to extend their data model much like large, like extend it further. And that would solve and like increase the number of returning customers, because that was also a problem, because like the clients were not happy with the portfolios that they get and with the interest that they get from their investments, and they were not returning. And then eventually it turned out that this was less important, and we took it out of scope. So making a multi-tenancy solution and creating the platform that they could then sell and use as a product was like out of scope for first release. So if you can see, it's like completely changed the perception of the project. As a result, we had to re-estimate the efforts, and it got like 3 times higher than indicated originally. So just imagine if we have signed on a certain budget, and then they started to bring all these features in. The team composition was refined because we realized that we don't need that much UI effort, but we rather need data analysts and we need some backend developers to work on that task. The project schedule was refined, of course, and the roadmap, of course, was changed because we will have different features or different epics there, and we were doing a different type of work. And then the business objective model was used to validate all the incoming backlog items. So we were actually validating like whatever feature was upcoming into the backlog, like how is that solving this? How is that helping us to solve this? How is this helping us to solve with this thing? And if it didn't, it goes to the bottom of the backlog. So that was a really easy method of prioritization with understanding like the business side of things. So this is a real example how you could change the perception of the project through the discovery phase, and how you can mitigate a lot of risk. Because all of this, if we just imagine that we had like this vision and we signed up with this vision and we started development, and then client would come with the changes. No, we don't need to replicate the existing logic. We need to change it, and we need to change, and this we need to add. That would be a nightmare. So all of that saved us a lot of nerves. Definitely. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Time for some questions. So if you have any, just put them into this Q&A box, and maybe we can just spend maybe just a few more minutes to answer that. If you're interested in our courses, make sure you can scan this QR code and just sign up for this page. So we have one question left. Can you advise what to read, watch on dealing with difficult customers? Yeah, that's a tough one. It's kind of hard for me to advise to watch something or to read something. I would love to answer that question, but I really don't know what to recommend. Hey guys, why don't you put something in the chat? Can you help with this question? Like maybe something that help you to deal with the difficult customers, because like maybe it's my theme, but I'm really like thick-skinned in terms of like nerves and stress, and I like rarely have these problems. I know I had worked with really difficult customers. Like I used to work on the enterprise where like I had real resistance to change. Like this was really like impossible to make any changes to that organization, and it was like people were really literally cursing on the meetings at me, but I was fine with that. And so I didn't read anything like any special literature or like watched anything, but maybe let's check if we have any suggestions in the chat. Active listening, empathy are two things that help. Definitely, yeah, I would agree to that. So maybe just basic knowledge of the active listening techniques, or trying to be empathetic, trying to understand where this person is coming from, like these difficult stakeholders, because he's only difficult because of something. Yeah, so maybe just understanding why is he difficult can help. So that's like being empathetic. But really, like any books or something I don't see also in the chat. So unfortunately, maybe if I think of something, we can add this into follow-up, but I really doubt that. to be honest. Yeah, we have another good question from Max. How much are you ready to fight if you see the customer is not ready for the change? Yeah, it's a really like philosophical, I would say. It depends like on what our perception of that project is. If we really like need this project, if we really want this business, maybe it's something new for us, and this is a domain where we really need to stick our foot in. Maybe we have to fight and persuade the client that let's do it, let's try to do it. But usually, like if you put that on a like real scale of things, advise, like if you see that the organization is not ready to a change, the assessment of organization readiness to change is also one of the like let's say, discovery phase tasks, you may just advise not to proceed with that project and save the money, save the budget. So it's really up to, it's really kind of philosophical. So for me, I would rather advise the client not to proceed with the project, but it may be not in the best interest of my company. So it should be a common decision, I would say, of the team, and you would need to check with the manager about that. Yeah, but that's a really tough question, Max. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so anything in the chat? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for staying that late with me. We have a comment from Vitaly. Usually answer in the following way: empathize, show that you are in the same boat. Yeah, try to solve something together and support your views with solid arguments. Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Additionally, you can involve a senior person, senior stakeholder, which also may help. All right, so we have basically just one more last question. Okay, one more last question. From your own experience, what is the biggest risk problem that could arise, prevent you from successful discovery? I would say omitting a stakeholder, like forgetting an important stakeholder, or that would be a big risk, because in that case you will like not understand the certain like requirements, a certain like site where the requirements can come from. You will miss the requirements and you would end up with creating the product which will not like solve the needs. And this is like the worst that can happen, that no one will use it, and you know, that would be awful. So I would answer like that. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Yes, Slava Ukraini. And yes, thank you for this wonderful webinar. Thank you for staying with me. And we're gonna wrap it up right now. So that's it. That's it for me. Goodbye.